All right, let's look at some news stories. This was sort of interesting. A guy was living on Linux, so he tried to use Windows 11, and he lists the main irritations he found, which I thought are pretty interesting. You can't use local accounts hardly at all anymore. They try to force you to use cloud accounts, and the Google Passkeys will not work. I haven't tried that. That's interesting. I have heard from Security Now, the podcast of Steve Gibson, that the passkeys are not really ready for prime time yet. And the email client didn't work, and the scrolling couldn't be adjusted. And of course, there's ads on the Windows 11 desktop, which seems pretty outrageous if you're used to Linux. And Save As defaults to OneDrive, which is pretty annoying. And you know what he didn't even notice, I guess it hasn't happened to him yet, Microsoft is going to slam AI into Windows 11 for everybody, whether you like it or not.
I remember that.
Yeah, I don't think it's... Yeah, and I don't think it's rolled out to everybody yet. But that would have been another thing. And they want to make it so you can't turn it off, just like all this stuff. Although there are ways to turn these off, Microsoft makes it very difficult because they want to force you to use their features. It's their general political, their philosophy as a company is that they are the boss and you are the employee, and they will order you what to use and you'll use it and like it. That's their premise. Whereas whereas Apple has the other philosophy where we have to actually make something that you want so you're willing to pay for it. Anyway, this I thought was very interesting. This is a propagating worm in the supply chain. What it does is it infects machines. They trick them into downloading malware or something. Then it steals the API keys that it finds in the documentation of a GitHub repository, and it uses it to go to other repositories and infect them too. So the infection spreads, and it's going into Visual Studio Code plugins and infecting hundreds of them. So I haven't ever heard of a spreading worm in the supply chain before like this. It's quite advanced and a very interesting thing. And, this really bothered Paul Asadoorian. I was just on his podcast because he uses Visual Studio Code and he uses plugins in his Visual Studio and code. And he said, this is really bad. How do I know that stuff is safe? And you don't. And apparently, when you deploy a plugin, it is quite easy to make a mistake and put the secret API key in a public configuration file. And so the worm finds it. Yeah.
I want to read that. What's the name of the title?
It is Glassworm, and it's in my news links. Yep, the first self-propagating worm. And so Microsoft Teams, they're adding an automatic feature to use the Wi-Fi network to figure out where you are and automatically update your location so your boss knows where you are, which might be handy in a corporate environment, but of course, maybe you don't want the boss to know where you are all the time. So it's an issue. And once again, this is Microsoft rolling out a feature that a lot of people probably don't want. Microsoft never seems to think about that. They just roll out something, and then people complain, and they say, gee, why wouldn't everybody just want that? Remember when the pandemic hit, they added a feature to Teams that would simulate you sitting around a table for a conference, and then they added a feature that would simulate you riding in a bus to commute to work because they felt like you had missed that valuable experience. It's Microsoft is a very strange company, and they make a lot of very strange projects that nobody wants. But every now and then they make a good one, and they end up making a pile of money. They have 3 flops and a hit, 3 flops and a hit. That's how they operate. So there was an article Paul posted where a guy said, I made a tool that can crack Fortinet password hashes, but to get it, you have to send me $100 worth of Bitcoin. So I looked into that, and I did not pay for it, but I just Googled for it, and I found out that Fortinet did indeed used to use really weak password hashes, and they just updated. Now, PBKDF2 is a modern password hashing routine with a salt that's pretty good. They say they just updated to it in a recent version. Previously, they used SHA-256, just one round of SHA hashing, and you can crack that with any standard hash cracking tool like Hashcat, the free tool on Linux. So this guy's charging $100 for his Python imitation of Hashcat. Anyway, but it is true that using just a normal hash function like SHA-256 without a salt and without many repetitions is a terribly bad hash rigging algorithm, and you can recover passwords from that. So this woman is MAGA, and she supports Andrew Cuomo for the mayor of London, or mayor of New York City, and she started a group called Hot Girls for Cuomo. And this is pretty interesting because one of the main complaints against Cuomo is that he's a rapist, like Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth and most of the members of the Trump cabinet. They're pretty much all rapists. But she did not buy the domain name that naturally goes with this. And so somebody bought hotgirlsforcuomo.com, and they put on there the legal documents documenting the accusations of rape against Cuomo. And somehow this group is not growing rapidly. Somehow not too many people are joining. All right, and this is a tool that might possibly be interesting. This guy claims this tool has a free version and a pay version, and what it does is make a USB stick you can use to deploy what he calls privacy-enabled Windows versions. So I'm not entirely sure. This guy says a honeypot. Well, it could be. It could be that that tool is actually malware if you download it. I didn't pay $100 to get it. If it was malware, I think he'd give it away for free, but I don't know. Anyway, I think maybe it actually cracks those passwords. It's just that that's not that hard a thing to do. There's plenty of tools that will do it. Anyway, this thing here, I haven't tried it, but it sounds somewhat useful, an easy way to install something, and the privacy-enabled version of Windows perhaps has some of those irritations turned off that I was talking about earlier. I'm not sure exactly what makes it privacy-enabled. So I was very excited to see this. Another article came out listing how vulnerable edge devices are, like firewalls and VPNs, and how the number of 0 days has not changed at all, and they seem to be terrible in security, and they mostly have vulnerabilities that are old because you're running really old code and they aren't updating it. And I said, I've been saying for years that people should make a more secure edge device and advertise that and sell it, and Sophos has done it. Sophos has made a new firewall which they claim to be more secure. Their new firewall has got a hardened kernel, and it has remote integrity monitoring, which is the main thing. You can ask it to verify that all the software is intact on it, which is what I thought. All you have to do is add something like Tripwire or like Apple, have signatures on all the code. So I don't know if this is effective yet, but it's the first product I've seen advertising that we're a firewall with more security to protect the firewall from attacks, which is absolutely what we need. And I hope a lot of other vendors will compete with them, and this will become a standard selling point, is to have security features to protect your firewall. So this is another interesting supply chain sort of flaw. Not exactly a supply chain flaw in the usual sense, but these products, Cursor, which I think is the #1 AI coding platform, and something called Windsurf, these products sell, but they include Chromium, and they haven't updated the Chromium. So they give you an out-of-date Chromium with a bunch of known vulnerabilities, 94 plus known vulnerabilities. So this is a problem, and this is true of a whole lot of products, like all the Android emulators, except the one we're using now that's built into Android Studio, which I'm not sure about. All the others run on VirtualBox, and they also run usually on old versions of VirtualBox. They don't really keep up to date. So this is a big problem for all developers. You include libraries of code, and do you really keep that stuff up to date? You probably can't. You probably don't. So it's a problem. That's using software components with known vulnerabilities. And so the Trump administration is firing tons of more government officials, and they've reassigned the cybersecurity agents to work on immigration enforcement instead. What's that?
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah.
Ever since the Trump administration got in, I've noticed a lot of news from CISA going downhill fast.
A lot of what?
News about CISA going downhill fast.
News of feast?
News about CISA.
Oh, news about CISA. Yes, CISA's been going down fast. Yes, absolutely. Because CISA, the head of CISA did election security, and they claimed that the 2020 election was secure, and therefore Trump hates them with the burning fires of 1,000 suns and just wants to see them all fired. And now he's starting to talk about prosecuting them and jailing them for daring to say such a thing. So Chris Krebs, I think, is on his list of people he wants to prosecute. He hasn't got around to him yet, but he probably will. So in fact, he gave a speech, I just heard it on the way in, and he said, we can never allow what happened in 2020 to happen again. And what happened in 2020 is the Democrats won. So what he's saying, is we have to rig the elections and end this. We have to do what Putin does. You have to have fake elections. course, he says the Democrats are all cheating. We have to get rid of their fraud. And the mechanism by which he tried to do that last time was to send the National Guard or the Marines into the cities to impound the voting machines from the cities so their votes wouldn't count. And I expect he will try to do that again. Anyway, is it network cable that it's bothering you there?
Oh, network is just fine. For some
Yeah,
reason,
what I do is connect with wireless. That probably works better. Anyway,
For some reason, someone turned off the equipment for this thing. Don't know why.
yeah.
That's it. Yeah,
Well, you
I
can-
just want to ask about CISA because
Yeah.
it's been having some heavy decline, and this was a good time to ask about that.
Yeah, and now they've taken they've laid off a bunch of people at CISA, and now they took a bunch of who remains and reassigned them to immigration. And so that's not the job these cybersecurity people want to do. And I think if I was working for the Trump administration, I would just quit. I don't think there's any possible benefit for working for them, but we'll see. Maybe they think they can hold on for 4 years and expect it to change or something, but it's got to be pretty horrible to work in the government now.
That said, though, with that though there are some immediate aspects I've noticed with their decline. Let's see, for example, a PA system at an airport was actually hijacked recently in Pennsylvania.
Well, I did see the PA got hacked at an airport, but that's probably not directly related to CISA. I think CISA puts out advisories and stuff, and they're probably going to be degraded, but it'll probably take 6 months or a year before that would actually have a noticeable effect.
Good point.
Yeah, just like when they stop vaccinating people, it takes about a year before all the diseases start spreading, which is now happening. That's
Measles, yeah.
yep, measles and whooping cough, and soon polio, but I haven't seen polio yet. But polio will be next, I think.